Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Scott Cohen on the line. He's founder, chairman, and CEO over at Wrap Technologies. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right, so a lot to talk about here today. I've been on YouTube watching some of the demonstrations of one of your products, and I was like, wow, how did I not know this existed? A lot of reasons behind the creation of this. But before we get into Wrap Technologies and the products that you're working on, and also your growth, I know you have some guidance that you've put out publicly that we can talk about. Before we get into that, I see the term here, founder. Were you always an entrepreneur? Where'd that come from? Take me back in time a little bit.
Yeah, always entrepreneur-ish. I started a merchant bank with a partner back in 2000, believe it or not, and that evolved into a hedge fund called Iroquois Capital in 2003. We built that up to about $600 million in AUM. Then I went on to do a couple of private equity funds, and then came back to really got very, very entrepreneurial and decided to tap an inventor, Woody Norris, to develop this technology together. And that's how it all started. That was over 9 or 10 years ago.
Wow, so you're 10 years in on this.
Yeah, and it may take it even further. We did a self-underwriting. I have a lot of familiarity with capital markets. I've led thousands of financings in my career when I was running the fund. And I decided I didn't need a banker. I had plenty of following from my hedge fund days and private equity days. So I found a market maker. He started making a market. We had stock traded by appointment only. And we got to be honest, the videos, we just put out a prototype video in the very beginning. It was done in my house. That video got a couple 100 million views around the world. And and then it just launched us. And everybody, we were getting called from every major city and county and country around the world. Our stock went from 50 cents to $15 on heavy volume. We took in $175 million in capital, I think, from inception to now. I've led most of those, or brought together most of those financings. And so capital hasn't been the issue. But the big issue is just you're breaking into an industry that doesn't like change. It's public safety. We all know it. Everybody's up in arms about, are we safe enough, and what's the proper use of force, de-escalate, defund the police, a lot of terms that people are talking about, but change, but who is really doing the changing? Who's innovating? Who's bringing new ideas to the industry? I decided that I wanted to bring a non-lethal option to public safety. I felt like Taser, which is a very heavily used device, it's deployed in over 90% of the departments, there should be an alternative to it. It's a fine tool. It does a great job. And it's used when there's a pretty aggressive situation going on where it might involve violence or even a firearm or a weapon. This non-lethal device that we created is not to compete with that. And that was a lot of the confusion in the beginning of 9 years ago when we launched this. The officers, departments thought that we were competing for belt space against the Taser. We're not. This is a completely different use of force. This doesn't use pain to bring the subject into compliance. So just a quick one. In this country, 25,000 arrests a year. 25,000 arrests a day. 20% of the time there's resistance. 97% of the time they're unarmed and they're not violent. So how do you bring them into custody? You have to use some kind of tool unless you're going to use your hands. Well, we believe it should be a non-lethal tool. So we created a device that does it. What we didn't do is train it the way that we are now. And I think the training is the real unlock, Adam. And that's where I see things starting to get really heat up for us because of the training protocol that we developed, because of the policies that this country is embracing right now, which is if totality of circumstance, Supreme Court decision a couple of years ago, Barnes v. Felix, if the totality of circumstances, if everything on that scene is going to be evidence now in an excessive force case. So everything matters, not the 2 seconds before the encounter, but everything, even their training matters with today's policies. So that means you have to be extra careful. You have to buy down risk. And we believe when you come to a resistance situation, it's a multi-layered, non-lethal response system we built. We're using light, our laser, sound, our sound off the device, and we take the legs with restraint. That is our 3-tiered system. It's being deployed in over 1,000 departments around the country, 50 countries around the world. It's being used on a daily basis. And now that policies are starting to support this and we got the training, I think it's going to be on every officer's belt, not only in this country, but around the world. We've got it going in drones now, robots, and a 6-shot shoulder mount. So there's a lot of innovation. We're leaning into it because the system works and it's saving lives and it's making officers safer the way they take subjects into custody. So it's a cool moment for us and good timing for this conversation. Appreciate that.
Before we go further, let's take one step back just for people that haven't seen maybe the YouTube videos. If you can, this is obviously an audio podcast. Like, how does the device work for those that haven't seen it on YouTube or anywhere else?
Well, first, our website is www.wrap.com. So lots of videos there, and you can see it's self-explanatory. There's really not much to talk about. It's a Kevlar. It's a piece of Kevlar. It's 7.5 feet long. We use a microgas generator that actually gives us the firing of the device. So it's fired up on microgas, and it hits the subject and it wraps around their legs. It has 4 small prongs on each of the pieces on each side of the Kevlar, and it wraps around your body. That's the wrapping part. But what's interesting about it, and this is I would say 60 to 65% of departments that have BOA wraps do not consider it a reportable use of force. So they don't even think it's force, those departments. But what we totally didn't account for, and what's a real big surprise here, is the sight, the laser, and the sound compliance that we're getting is over 10 times the amount of BOA wraps that we're deploying. So in other words, sight and sound is doing 10 times more work than the actual restraint. So if you add all that up, and if we just look at our deployments over the years, we're underreporting what this device is doing. And I feel like as the public starts to understand this, and as departments really start to understand this, and as legislators really start to understand this, it's really easy, Adam. It's pretty obvious. It's very logical what we're doing here. And we're not, again, this is not a call out on tasers, batons, pepper spray, or guns. They absolutely have a place in public safety. We're just suggesting that 97% of these encounters, we need to have a tool that doesn't use pain to bring you in compliance, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, and I noticed in some of the videos that I watched. So, for example, the officer or the mock officer in the stage video that I saw is he's talking to somebody, they're not complying. Then he points out something that kind of looks a little bit like a taser, a device, like it's about that maybe the same size, but definitely not a taser. And he points it at him, and then when he shoots, it's like this cord that goes out that you mentioned. I believe you said Kevlar, and then the cord wraps around the legs if that's where he's pointing them to, and now you can picture, for everybody at home listening, you can picture the person that was standing there in that situation and not complying. Essentially what the officer did is shot a cord around that then wrapped around the legs of the individual that was not being compliant. Didn't hurt them. They're not in pain, anything else like that. But now guess what? They can't run. Right? Like they can't run. They really can't move. Their legs are together. And I would imagine, and at that point, I'd imagine they're feeling pretty incapacitated. And I would imagine that many times it's going to de-escalate for a certain point because they literally can't move. Like their legs are together and they're tied up, right?
That's right. I'm just going to add one thing because we weren't accounting for this, and it's really important. Yeah. Look, time is your friend in these encounters. So you're looking to create time and distance, right? These are 2 fundamental things that officers do when they're assessing the situation, and they're trying to de-escalate it. So what we use with our system is our light compliance, our laser, is absolutely disrupting the OODA loop, which gives the officers a 2-second advantage. And then when we use the sound actually creates confusion. So you're using a 2-second advantage on an OODA loop distraction, and then you're using confusion with the sound. Now the officer is using the BOA wrap if you need to go further and take the legs, and you're closing the distance. So it doesn't matter if it wraps or not. You've used sight, sound, and now you're closing the distance because you've disoriented the subject, and now you're going to bring your arrest and control methods, whatever method you have, into play so you can take that subject. If you look at those thousands of body cam videos we have, Plenty of them are up online. You can see them on YouTube. You'll see that most of this ends with sight and sound and closing the distance without the bull wrap at all. When the bull wrap doesn't wrap because their arms are flailing or their legs are flailing, or there's, they shot at the ground, or it just was a operator, maybe their backs were against the car, because you need 3 feet behind you and 3 feet to the side. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter, because you could still close that distance, because you have absolutely distracted and confused the subject. When you train that the right way, Adam, it works. And now we've got 9 years to prove it. And here's the thing I'm most proud of. After 9 years and probably 15, let's say 40 to 50,000 of these devices around the world, not one fatality, not one serious injury, and not one litigation.
Whoa.
I mean, this is it, right? It's it. And it's hard to come into this industry. It is. But we're not talking about it. We're actually in this work, and we're doing it. And now that we've got the results in hand, now we can go in front of major cities. I was at one last week. They have a $500 million excessive force case that they're dealing with right now.
My gosh,
they just can't afford it. They can't afford to do what they were doing before. They cannot. It's just not reasonable. So we thought of and innovated, and, I thought it was just the device was going to, just like you started off in this interview talking about the device. It's not the device. It's how you train it. And it's recognizing the sight and sound and the impact that sight and sound is having in combination with the restraint. And when you add policy to support that, this is what really is going to lead, in our opinion, to better outcomes for public safety. And this is what we're focused on. This is what's driving our numbers. If you look at the numbers that we put out last quarter, it's growing. You can see it. Already our backlog is at levels of, in the second quarter, we reported just our first quarter. You see that I call that 100% growth this year. And with some luck and some of these contracts, it could certainly be bigger. We'll see. But I have enough confidence, clarity based on what we're doing, based on the results that we're seeing, to call out 100% growth this year. But here's the way this works. You get one major city or maybe two that are having good outcomes. It's not just for one or two. It's for every major city. It's for every school. It's for all federal government agents. And here's the big one. It's for all security guards, because they don't carry anything. And there's 20 million security guards in this country, and there's 1 million cops. So the security guards are 20 times the size of the opportunity than public safety. So, so what we're doing is we're proving it on the institutional level, at the law enforcement level. And once we do that, which is happening now, I see it every day, then that's going to come right into the security guard space, because they need it, because they don't carry anything. Most of them have nothing to carry, because it's just, they're encouraged to just try to intimidate, but they don't carry anything. They're going to carry the bullet. They're going to carry it. So I can't help but get excited about what's going to happen, what's happening now. And if we can execute on this, Adam, it's going to be our competitor, the only real competitor in the space that has a device that's kind of linking training and other cameras and real ecosystem, has a $40 or $50 billion market cap. So we're at about less than about $100 million market cap. They were our size 20, 25 years ago. So I feel really called to try to fill some of those tracks. I think the industry needs a competitor. It's not fair for LA, you live in LA, LAPD, just to have one real source. They need competition. They need competition on pricing, on grants, on training. There has to be, and there hasn't been. That's unsafe. We bring competition to this because we bring choices to the industry now. And, just speaking about investment, I'm not just talking about this. I'm walking the walk. I think between the fund I used to manage and myself, there has to be probably $50 or $60 million invested from myself personally, plus that fund. My friends have put in essentially the balance. So you're talking about way over $100 million of money from my collective network. And personally, I think it's close to 8 or 9 or maybe $10 million. I lost count, $6 million in the last 2 years or so. So I'm totally determined to make this work. I'm not going to stop. This is higher purpose. Yes, we can all make a lot of money, but there's more to it than that. Our kids are going to benefit from this. This has got generational impact.
Man, what a story, Scott. I love this. This is great. It affects a lot of people, and you're moving something that's not very easy to move, and you're putting your chips in it too. So any entrepreneur, regardless of what they're doing, when they're all in like that, man, that's inspiring. I love it. Oh,
And
yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way, because that's the way I operate.
Yeah.
Like my back, I need I say it, but when the pressure really comes, I can't stand it. But I happen to do well in those environments. So here I am, money on the line, network on the line. I mean, this is what I'm doing. So I want to finish what I started. I want to finish with the job. It's not done yet.
Amazing. Scott, this has been great having you on today. You left the website once, but let's do it again. And how do people connect? How do they learn more about the company?
Adam, I did this search yesterday. I want this audience to Google this or use whatever AI tool you have. Google or use ChatGPT and put in what's the safest non-lethal tool in the marketplace today, or do what's the safest way to take a subject into custody without using pain. And you will see bowler app comes up the first hit, and we have it. We're just getting started. So go do your own research. It's out there. It's not, you don't have to go to my site. Go to my site. That's great. But actually do your own research. It's just there for you to see. And go look at all the litigation and excessive cases. See that this country pays out $3.5 billion a year in excessive force cases. We got to stop that shit. It's enough. And we're taking a stand on that. And by investing us, you're supporting a different approach to public safety that we're absolutely on. We're on that path. And now, for the first time, 2 weeks ago, I feel confident enough to guide for the first time because the business is starting to get clear. So we're in a great space. Thank you for introducing you to me, to your audience. And I hope you guys can follow our journey. Fill out your info. We've got a place to put your name. We'll give you all our press releases, updates. You're going to learn a lot by just being connected with us, because we're teaching you how to close the distance. We're teaching you how to be safer. We're teaching our audience. We're teaching public safety, and we're leading in this area. So really appreciate this. And, I hope we can stay in touch, Adam. It would be really cool. So thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for the audience, just so you know, we're going to put some links and some other things on there, to some videos and other things in the show notes, so that you can click on the links. Head right on over. Definitely do your research, like Scott said. I'm a big fan of that too. But that being said, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, this is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Scott, man, appreciate all the work you're doing, and thanks again for coming on.
Appreciate you, Adam. Thank you.